I'm going to cover a topic, a question which is very controversial, all right, and may cause some surprise to people. Now, the question is this: should Christians watch fireworks? It's not full stop, right? Should Christians watch fireworks after Watchnight service? Should Christians watch fireworks after Watchnight service? Now, this is something that has been happening, and I wasn't aware of it until this year, and also that there are questions around this. Now, how should we view all this moving forward? Now, I would say that, in fact, I wrote a pastoral on this exact thing last year, right? End of last year. So those of you, or rather, in 2017, I think. Let me see. Why have Watchnight service? I wrote about why do we have Watchnight service. I also wrote about, the spirit of Watchnight service that we should have, and about fireworks. Now, when we think about all this, how should we think? Is watching fireworks a sin? Is the church a cult? So we must not watch fireworks? Now, how should we think? That is the question. And I think we should have this settled once and for all in our hearts, and so that there are no confusion about this, no misunderstanding about this. Now, what do you think? Now, before I say that, I've spoken to people individually as well as in group, those who are involved in organizing watching fireworks after Watchnight service. So this is not something that I'm doing this just to attack those who have organized. We've spoken about this, and we come to some clearly established and understood biblical principles. Then I felt it's important for the whole church to understand it as a whole. Okay? So maybe I ask ask the young ones, all right? Younger ones. Elisha, is it a sin to watch fireworks? No. So should we go watch fireworks after Watchnight service? Julius? No. Why? You're afraid of the noise? No. All right, maybe Yufei, what do you think? Should we go watch fireworks after Watchnight service? Not sure. Okay. Stephen is going like that, right? Noisy fireworks. Maybe ask the older ones. What about Maggie? You don't know? Not sure. So here to learn. Very good. Veronica? No. Well, most of them know, and one don't know. I want to learn. Another one I don't know at all. Maybe ask the adult. Sorry, ask the adult. Benedict. All the kids are looking at you. Say again? Up to this point, you don't see anything wrong with it, right? And what the church says. Or whether there's church the next morning, right? Well, Watchnight service. Oh, so you say, what happens if it falls on a Saturday night? That's what you're saying. All right, okay. Yeah, good point. And the last one, maybe I ask Ashna. There's a lot of fireworks where you come from? Rare, right? Oh, a lot. What do you think? So for the rest, you just think in your heart, right? What is it? Now, this is always a very sensitive topic. So let's first and foremost establish some principles, all right? Then ask ourselves the questions. Now, let us turn to Ecclesiastes chapter 3. Ecclesiastes chapter 3. Ecclesiastes chapter 3. Verses 1 to 4, right? Some principles that we can draw from here. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 to 4. Ecclesiastes 3, 1 to 4 reading. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to break down, and a time to build up. a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance. Now, the Bible gives us a principle. There are appropriate times for different things, all right? Even when it comes to weeping, laughing, mourning, dancing, meaning celebrating, all right? We are not nowhere talking about the dancing that people do at clubs and all that. This is about national celebration. So there's a time for all things. And the Christian should have such a principle. And now then, the question is on Watchnight service. Now, what is the time about? That is the thing we need to ask. I might as well say it right from the beginning. Now, anyone believes that the church believes that watching fireworks is a sin? Anyone? That from attending BPCWA, you believe that BPCWA believes that watching fireworks is a sin? No one dares to put up their hand. All right? Well, now remember, when we organized outreaches on Australia Day, I think. Australia Day, is that correct? Yeah. Now, we even sent out in the text or I think email or something like that. Now, when the fireworks begin at a certain time, right, we actually told the people, we can come together and watch it. And this is the location, the exact location where we will gather. So finish up your evangelism at that time before that so that you can make your way to the point where we gather together and watch fireworks together, all right? We even tell people, make sure that if you want to watch together, then stop and come. Now, are we telling people not to evangelize? What do you think, Caleb? Cornelius, are we saying, don't evangelize, come and watch fireworks? No. When the fireworks begin, right, no matter how you evangelize, they either can't hear you or they're not going to pay attention to you. Right? When the fireworks begin, that's going to happen. Now, we are not against watching fireworks at all. We even organize watching it together. So don't for a moment think that we're like that. And if anyone tells you otherwise, right, please quote this. So with that, then we have to ask ourselves, now what about watch night service? What is watch night service? Now, the watch night service is a time where we organize it as a watch night, right? Not watch fireworks, right? Watch what? Watch fireworks? Now, it's to watch as we enter into the new year, all right? To come and watch together, focusing on the journey that we should think about, that we have passed and enter into a new year. Now, just like the Israelites, and that is why I often choose the passage for Holy Communion that night, where it was instituted, they were all gathered. Gathered for what? To watch for the time that they will leave Egypt quickly, all right? And Egypt in the Bible is clearly often pointing to the world, all right? To leave the world means not to be part of the world. The reminder of the Passover was that. And to leave it quickly. That is why they will eat quickly, right, with their gowns all drawn up, ready to run. Now, that is how the Lord introduced the Lord's Supper on the time when they get the new calendar. And that is why I choose that passage. To leave Egypt, not to enter into the reveling of the world, to leave that behind. And for the children of Israel, it has always been the problem, right? They physically left Egypt, and we know the reality. Egypt never left their hearts. That was the problem. Right? So is this anticipation and the focus and the thinking about, well, what have drawn us into the world? And what should our journey be next year? That is why it's watching into the new year. Right? Watching, thinking about the Lord, entering the year with those thoughts. Now we have to make sure you understand this very clearly. There is nothing magical, divine, all right, supernatural about 11:58, 59, then 12 o'clock, all right, 0:00. There's nothing magical about us being awake and watching and then enter into the new year. And that's why, it's midnight, you better be in church. We are not saying that at all right? So that's the other principle. Because it is a time that is organized by the church to watch, having a spiritual watchfulness, reminding ourselves to leave the world behind, then it is not a night that it would be appropriate, all right, to actually Watchnight to actually end the night by going to what the world revel in. Now, please remember, the world has nothing to look forward to in the new year. The world has nothing to watch. They're just hoping for the best, that's all. They have no resolution to be more godly, more spiritual. They have nothing. So they create fireworks to enthrall themselves, to entertain themselves, to wow themselves, to just get excited and not think about, well, anything but just enjoy the moment. That is the world, fireworks for that purpose on that night in particular. Right? So now knowing all this and knowing the purpose, the time, the season for which this night is organized for, then it is not appropriate. Right? So that is the principle. That is what it is. Perhaps I will ask you, it is someone's funeral. It's a time of soberness. All right? It is time of thinking about our own lives as well. It's a time of being a testimony to the unbelievers. It's a funeral. Do you think it's appropriate for certain activities during, before, after? You know it is not appropriate, right? So we are talking about that principle, okay? Now, furthermore, we want to say, well, while it is enjoyable to watch fireworks with the covenantal family, now there are some level of bonding over all that, but there is not much opportunity to really have deep reflection together on spiritual things. Now, by the way, I'm just reading what after discussing with people who have organized fireworks, and they begin to see the principle, and this is a summary, all right, of the principles that became clear to the people. And this is actually what a person summarized to give to me. They said, this is my personal conviction. I understand now. I've organized it. I realize I should not have based on these principles, right? Now, so there is, but at the end of the day, it is not much of an opportunity for deep reflection together on spiritual things when we are watching fireworks. Right? Don't call it fellowship, right? Because you can't be talking about contemplating together about the Lord, His goodness, and our resolution, right? You can ask people, well, let's go there and talk about our resolutions. It will not work. So don't have this idea that it's for fellowship. Think carefully, all right? It doesn't achieve the purpose. Now, then there is no obligation. I want us to be very, very, very clear about this, all right? There is no obligation to stay back. Remember when I announced, I made it very clear. If you can stay back, then stay back for spiritual fellowship. All right? If you cannot, then go home. I am fully aware that there will be elderlies. There will be people with young children. All right? I don't want ever to give the impression that staying back means you are the more holy ones. You're the holier ones. You're the godlier ones. All right? You're the ones who watch. It is nothing magical about that crossing over. It's the spirit of that night. So if you feel, I need to go home, I'm an elderly, right? I want to go home and start my time of personal prayer, of thanking the Lord, of watching into the new year at 10:30 or 11 o'clock, then so be it. It's that soberness, that spirit, all right, of preparing our hearts and mind and gathering our thoughts. What are we going to think about? How do we want to be with the Lord as we enter into the new year at 10 p.m. or whatever is the time? Sometimes with children, families want to go back with the right spirit because we want to end the night together. Yeah, the children need to sleep early, but before we end the night, we want to end the night together as a family, praying, teaching our children about certain things as we enter into the new year. And that could be at 11 o'clock. All right, so there's nothing magical I want to say about that midnight strike of the clock. All right? So we don't expect people to stay back at all. Now, but we want to say this. If you do stay back, all right, remembering again the reason why we are gathered on that night. We can gather at other times, all right? In fact, there are fireworks in Perth so often. It's quite amazing. So often, and you can watch at any time. You do not have to have it that night. You do not have to get people to go and watch that night. All right? There are many other opportunities. But if you do choose to stay back, well, it says a few things. You can stay back. All right? And if you can stay back, then remember the purpose for which we organized that. Correct? Now, maybe as a grandparent, or maybe one day you become a grandparent, all right? And it's your 100th birthday, right? Your 100th birthday, and then the family think is a big deal. It's so much to give thanks to God for, and all that. And then they organize a birthday gathering, all right? Do you think it's appropriate that during or after the gathering, right, then all the teenagers are rowdy, just playing and all that, and then here is the elderly person there, like as if I don't exist? Is that kind of appropriateness that we're talking about? Now, so if you can stay back for appropriate reasons. Not because you don't want to cross the year alone. You don't want to be lonely. Right? So you stay back, and as a result, you turn the rest who stay back in the environment into frivolity, lightness of heart, not watching, and people having spiritual conversation, and then you turn it into just talk about fun and games kind of thing to distract others. So if you do stay back, the point is this, all right? Stay back for the right reason. Ensure that you do not, right, distract others and yourself from the reason for which we are staying back. So I hope we understand that, right? So now another thing that I want to say is, well, if you do want to stay back and you want to actually leave for the fireworks, right? You want to stay back, you want to leave for the fireworks. Now, what should you do? So you say, Pastor, I have no such conviction, right? I want to bring my families to go watch fireworks and all that. You want to enter into New Year like that. I have no such conviction, all right? So whatever you say next year, I'm going to do it. I'm not convicted about this, all right? Now, what do you think you should do then? So you're all in church and then you're living. What do you think you should do? Maybe ask Claude. Don't stir and ask other people to go along, right? And say, let's go, what are you doing, right? After this, I'm going to watch fireworks, you want to go with me, right? What should we do? Why don't we go watch fireworks, all right? What else is there to do after midnight on that night? The question is, what shall we do? Is obviously, let's go watch fireworks, right? Now, if you don't have such, you don't feel that it is anything important to you and your family, and as head of home, you want to do that. Now, do not stir others to go. Because some other families, they may feel differently from you. And they want their children to be sober, right? During that period, and really to be, their hearts and mind much occupied with the Lord, in much prayer and desire of speaking of Him in thankfulness to others and the things that God has done for our lives. You want your family to be like that. But now you stir other people's children to be excited about it, right? Then you cause a problem. If you do not have such convictions, then respect other people's convictions. Respect the church's convictions, right? So it's going to be one of those things. So if you still feel, well, I don't really care, I'm going to do it next year, then, well, go on your own. Do not stir others and give people the idea about all this. All right? So I think that these are some things that I hope you understand and recognize. Let me see, make sure I cover all the things that I want to say. Yes. All right, so don't draw people away from their spiritual watchfulness, their spiritual fellowship on that night, and detract them from the principle. Now turn to Philippians chapter 1, please. Now we draw in another principle. Philippians chapter 1. And you know that we always know that this is a good principle to abide by, right? Philippians chapter 1. Now let's read from verses 9, all right, to 11. 9 to 11 reading. And this I pray, that your love may abound yet more and more in knowledge and in all judgment, that ye may approve things that are excellent, that ye may be sincere and without offense to the day of Christ, being filled with the fruits of righteousness, which are by Jesus Christ, unto the glory and praise of God. May God bless the understanding of His word to us. Now here there is an overarching principle for the Christian. You say, well, I'm not convicted about this. I think this is fun for my family, right? I don't want to be a boring father or family or boring single, right? I want to do it. But let this principle guide the Christian. Now Paul pleads with them in verse 9, I pray that your love may abound. Love for the world. Or is it love for Christ and the brethren? The answer is obvious. That your love would grow. We always say, I want to grow in my love for God every year. I think it's a good place to start. That your love may grow. Now, not only grow, but abound. Abound is not just growth, it's like overflowing. And not just overflowing, but overflowing more and more. Now, in knowledge, the principles of Christian living, right? Doctrines inform our choices, our living. And with that knowledge, Paul says, and in all, what? Judgment, discernment. Make judgment calls. That is the principle. Make judgment calls. Because things will keep changing. Make judgment calls. How to make the judgment call? Look at verse 10. That you may approve things that are excellent. The judgment call is this more excellent a choice on that particular night for myself, for my family, for other Christians? Which is a more excellent choice? And the excellent is always one that has to do with spiritual excellence, for your spiritual good, for the spiritual good of others. Right? That you may approve. How would you choose? When people say, let's go, what would you approve? When you want to suggest something, what would you approve of suggesting? So these are things that we have to think about. And then say that you may be sincere and without offense. Right? Now let it be honest. Let be honesty in our hearts. If we are carnal, we are worldly, we want these things, be honest about it. Well, spiritual things, spiritual conversation, these are boring to me. And I'll be hypocritical. All right, let's go for fellowship. Right? Let's go there and have bonding. What is really in your heart? Now then, verse 11, being filled with the fruits of righteousness. What is righteousness? Fruits of righteousness. That which is pleasing. That which is right in God's eye. Right? Pleasing in God's eye. Now, when we apply this principle, then we have to ask ourselves, which is more excellent a choice on that night? All right? When you're at evangelism, you cannot hear the gospel being preached, even yourself. It's noisy at the waterfront. So, well, there's nothing wrong. You can't be evangelizing at that time. It's not inappropriate at that time. Right? If you keep doing it, people will think we are crazy, right? Inappropriate, even for that. And then remember, you could potentially lead others who are staying back for the wrong reason. People will begin to stay back year after year. In fact, I asked Elder Leong, and Elder Leong said, Pastor, that was what the church used to be. People come for prayer meeting just to wait for the time to pass because they intend to go watch fireworks together. It was mainly about fireworks. Right? So we begin to build, instead of watchfulness in our heart and our children's heart, the mind will be, when is this over? We can go for fireworks after this, right? So don't be someone even during the sharing of when we are having a meal together that night and all that. Go around asking people, are you going for fireworks? Are you going for fireworks? Are you going for fireworks? We are going to come back to pray, right? Think about what you ask. Now, this is where I want to say this. Not just for fireworks, not just on Watchnight service. Let us have this mentality of carefulness, of watchfulness. Remember, we learned just before, the Sunday before Watchnight. The lesson was, well, opportunities, right? About opportunities. What does opportunities mean? And what are opportunities for? Opportunities, as we learn, is definitely never for us to sin, number one. Opportunities is always for us to choose that which would be a good example spiritually to others. That's what we learned, right? Just on Sunday night. So we have to ask ourselves that, actually we are poised with fantastic opportunities to watch fireworks because we are just at the waterfront. There's no church that is closer to fireworks in that sense, having waterfront and can watch than our church. Great opportunities, right? Great opportunities. We're all together. What are the times where, as a Christian friends, we are together at midnight? The opportunities are great, all right? But always think before you suggest. That is what we always want to build in ourselves. How is this going to be for my brethren? So you think about this. So be a thinking Christian for the sake of others as well. I think for those who were not asking when we were having porridge, what are you doing after this? You want to go watch fireworks? I think the parents will say, thank you very much for saying that in front of my child. And now, during prayer, what my child will be thinking about is fireworks. When are we going for fireworks, right? Be a thinking person. When we want to suggest something, have that principle of that you may approve things that are excellent. Is what I'm going to suggest excellent and appropriate for this situation? May not be just fireworks. May not be just a Watchnight service. The appropriateness, all right? Think, before I approve this and say I want to ask, think of how you would draw the hearts and mind of others, all right? So be a thinking Christian. Now again, that you may approve things that which are excellent. Opportunities. Someone say, let's go do this. It is always that principle. Don't jump to it. Think. Is it excellent? Is it good for me, for my siblings to see me wanting to do that? When I think, but watch night service, what is it meant for? Then you say, well, it is not the most excellent church on watch night service. All right? Don't just jump on it and go. All right? Even if pastor is the one who say, hey, after this, let's go watch fireworks, all right? So let's gather and pray first, but after that we'll go for fireworks. Now, if I were to say that, and there's an opportunity now, be a thinking Christian. Pastor, I don't think it's very appropriate. Neither do I want my children to have this spirit on watch night. Right? I'm trying to build a seriousness, somberness in their heart to know this is serious. We're entering into a new year. We have fallen in many ways in the old year. I want them to reflect, right? A time of reflection. Okay? So it's a time of reflection. Just like a father, all right? Your child have failed in many ways. Then say, well, I want you to go to your room to reflect. All right? Tonight, you spend the night reflecting. And also spend the night resolving in your heart, all right? Next year, to love God more, to be more obedient. You said, this is the night I planned for it, right? And then your wife, right, comes along. Hey, after this, we go McDonald's, right? After this, we are going ice cream, right? After this, I'll bring you to watch fireworks. And the father will say, thank you very much, right? I'm just creating this for the child, right? For example, or it could be the other way. Probably, usually the mother do that and the father is the one who does the opposite. Now, but I want to bring the point across, appropriateness. Please don't say that the church is setting rules and regulations and all that, right? It's appropriateness. Now, another thing is this. So today I'm not asking questions, right? I'm just, because of limited time, I want to make sure we establish all this. It can be a very sensitive topic in the sense of you like it and you now say cannot do it. Now, we do not say that you cannot do it. You can do it, all right? And just respect what the church believes is better, spiritually more excellent, right, for the fabric of the church, right, and the people's mentality and spiritual mindedness. Yes. Let me see. Okay, so I've covered some of the key things that I wanted to say. Now, always be careful of this spirit. The world just want to have fun, right? The world just want to have fun. Many of you look up, I think you know, there's a song, right? The world has fun, right? Fun. It says, and she'll have fun, She'll have fun till daddy takes a T-bird away, right? So, people just want to have fun. Well, until the parent take away the car, and cannot have fun, right? As long as they have it, the mentality is just to have fun. That is the mindset of the world. And the other one is Girls just want to have fun. And what's the matter with you? Girls just want to have fun. Now, come on. And this is how the world presents what we want to have in life. Then he says, I come home in the morning light. So after having fun all night, I come home in the morning light. My mother says, when you gonna live your life right? Right? So I come home in the morning light. My mother says, when you gonna live your life right? Oh, mother dear, we are not the fortunate ones. And girls just want to have fun. Oh, girls just want to have fun. Right? That's a mentality. I'm not saying that we don't have fun, all right? In church, can we organize activities? We organize games, all right? We have Sunday school games. But in there, we also make sure that there are learnings, spiritual learnings as we play the games. So children do have fun, all right? We do have activities. But the mentality is just have fun, 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 and that's all we think about, right? So there is a time, the Bible says, to weep, a time to laugh, a time to mourn, a time to dance, all right? There are appropriateness. So that's one thing that I want to ask. For us to understand the principle. And I've said, we do not expect people to stay back past midnight, and also that, please don't ever say we are a cult, all right? This is a cult. We cannot watch Watchnight service on that night. Well, if you don't have a personal conviction about that, about what is spiritually more excellent for yourself and for family on that night, then, well, you have your convictions. And the church is different from that. Now, so the next thing I want to say is, the church cannot enforce. So let us be clear. We are not enforcing this, right? We are, like Paul says, I pray, right? I pray thee, right? I plead with you to choose that which is excellent. Now, another thing is, constantly be honest in your heart. In your heart. What do you think about and want to do all the time? Is it just engaging fun and you don't like to be doing it alone, so you engage others? It's always just wanting activities, but you couch it with, well, we have spiritual fellowship. But reality, the reality of the content of the spiritual fellowship is not there. So now I'm very glad for the people who have organized it and spoke to them. They admitted, yeah, I didn't think about this. In fact, when we experience it, it is true. It's impossible to have spiritual fellowship crossing the year together at the fireworks. No one is listening, no one is paying attention, all right? So don't fall into that thinking that this is fellowship. Now, fellowship, Christian fellowship, and when you read Acts chapter 2, is always highly spiritual in content. All right? So if you say you want to go play badminton, you want to go shopping, you want to go watch fireworks, now don't use the word fellowship lightly. All right? Because there are younger ones who think that this is the meaning of Christian fellowship. This is what it is, just having fun. That is called having friendship activities, all right? Don't be someone who loves these activities, then you call it fellowship. I'm glad some parents are nodding their head, right? Don't make it into something spiritual when it is not really that. And people grow up with that. That's the fabric of the church. Having fun is called fellowship, which is what it is today. All right, so these are some of the things that I hope we understand in principle. And you still say, I don't agree. Like I said, the church cannot enforce. But please know that the church will teach what it believes is spiritually excellent. Then don't get angry at the church, all right? And respect what others also are trying to do in their own family. Right? You want to do that, then you do that yourself. I think I made a mistake. I said, go shopping. Now, there are things I really feel. You have to understand, and I'm coming to principles. There are some things that you do. It may not be a temptation to you, but it may be a temptation to someone else. Do not, as we pray all the time, God lead us not into temptation, then we are the one who lead people into temptation, right? It could be holidays, it could be shopping, it could be dining and all that. It may not be a temptation to you. You better be honest first, all right? But when you introduce some of these things, and now all of a sudden to the person who never tasted this thing, that like we mentioned in this morning's BBK, it's a new phase of life. They've never tasted all this. And suddenly they realize they have the money to be able to afford these things. and it becomes a snare to them. You want to go shopping, it's not a temptation to you. You want to go fine dining, it's not a temptation to you. All right? You're honest about your stewardship and all that, then have it to yourself. Have it to yourself. Think of what it can introduce into other people's lives. All right? So have that principle. And you still say, no, this I don't have conviction about, then I hope you respect that principle. That principle. It can cause others to have a problem. Now, we just had an issue in church, all right, after the Holiday Bible program. A child, which thankfully admitted fault, and like we learned this morning, and apologized to other children, right? Now, someone played with a computer game, right, after Holiday Bible program. Was playing, and some of the children said, no, stop this, you know. And the child did not, and he apologized to the other children for it, all right? That's important. But when I got home, all right, I got texts from parents, all right, very upset because the children went back and said, you know, this is what happened after Holiday Bible program. Now, actually, at Husbands Fathers Fellowship, we made it very clear to parents, to fathers, make sure that you do not allow your children to bring things to church, games, activities that will distract and tempt other children, all right? So the fathers, they agree with it, they understand it. They say, yes, we agree with it. I do not want my child to do that to someone else, nor someone else's child to do that to my child. Now then I spoke with the father. The father was very upset, right? The father said, you know, it's only recently I managed to get my child out of an attraction and almost addiction to computer games. And you know, it's so difficult these days. School require them to have a laptop. And the father said, no, it's so distressing. We spent time, we prayed and trained the child, and finally the child kind of got out of that. And then now, come to church. I thought church is a safe environment. I expect that the schools to be like that. But I came to church, and my child come back, you know, telling me, oh, you know, they were playing this. And all of a sudden, all the temptation can come back all over to him again. Now, my point is this. We have to be aware that what we do, all right? And this is what I explained to the child. What you do is not just about you. Other people can be led into temptation, snare, and can become now a new idol and a struggle to the person. And those who have been delivered from it, all of a sudden now have all this, all right, flying in their face again, right? So, now why do I say all this? What the church will be, what the church fabric will be, depends on what you do, what you allow. I'm unsure if I ask any parent here, do you want your child to grow up and eventually the church to be a place where fun? Or do you want your child to, when it comes to church, they love spiritual conversation, and the spiritual conversation edifies them and stirs them? Or do you want your child to come, oh, after that, Daddy, you know, we went fireworks, we went shopping, we went this and that. Now, I think if you're honest, you say, no, I do not want this church to become like that because I do not want my grandchildren to be in such a church. But it all depends on what we believe we should do now. All right? And lastly, I want to say this. Now, no church, and this is what I explained to some people, no church moves from hymns to contemporary Christian music overnight. And you know the principle, you know the story very well. There's always this gray crossover before we reach there. Because in this gray crossover, that's where you get less and less sensitive to the sound, to the kind of sound, and then you want more and more of it. And before you know it, you cross over to the contemporary, full-blown contemporary music without even sensing it. You say, Pastor, why do you give it the example? Now, we seldom think about when it comes to worldliness. It's the same strategy from Satan. When it comes to worldliness, it's the same strategy. No church moves from conservative, holy, godly, wanting to choose that which is spiritually excellent, careful. No church moves to a state where when you come to church, it's always just game and fun, and people don't talk about spiritual things. They just can't wait for, and this is another thing I want to talk about, just can't wait for the spiritual things to be over. All right, Watchnight over already, Holy Communion over, what can we do next? No church moves from this to that state, where people are not interested in spiritual things, without crossing a gray area as well. So don't just keep thinking this is the case for contemporary Christian music. This is the same thing when it comes to holy living. Not just doctrinal soundness, but holy living is how it crosses over. So this gray area, let us not be the one to introduce it, to promote it. We studied this morning, right? And I think God's timing is perfect. David cared about the heritage of Israel, to the point where he said, I want to resolve anything. I'm willing to admit sin. But many are not willing to admit sin. They want something, and they promote it. Right? David said, no, for the sake of the heritage of God, and that I can be part of the heritage and serve God in a holy way, I'm willing to admit if I have sinned. Are we ready? Or we say, all these things, extremists. Well, eventually it's your child that is going to suffer. Please know that. All right, I have no minute to take questions, but maybe I'll take one or two urgent questions. Anyone have urgent questions? Anyone? All right, too serious now. If you do, please submit and I'll be more than happy to answer, all right? Let's turn to God in prayer. What do we have here? Top 5 reasons why church dropouts, what church dropouts say, why they stop attending church. Now, please remember 66% of, well, I take the American view, they are the most readily available results. They stop attending church at least a year after turning 18. So from